Testing, testing. Good evening, and welcome to tonight's driver's ed class. Gonna wait till we get enough people here so we can get started. So make sure that you do sign in on your phone and to sign in on the comments. It's easier when you do it on the comment section. Because I get to see who's here on the computer. I've got to look down at my phone for those of you that are checking in on your phone, which I do want you to do. As you can see, it's a little bit different tonight. I have a studio light right here usually, and a bulb just busted. I mean, I just hoped there wasn't going to be a fire. The room is smelling like something's burnt. So it could be an interesting night talking about driver's ed material. So hopefully my little setup here won't catch on fire. So you can see that I've got a little bit of a mood thing going on tonight. So still waiting for people to sign in. We're still missing 2 or 3. I'm going to have to run down some people that aren't showing up, which isn't good. So, well, week 4, the home stretch, getting closer and closer. Let me get the sound effects here and bring these down just a little bit and turn that off and get into what I'd like you to do is to get out your state manual and turn to page 8 and turn to page 9. The state has really done away with most of the material that they had for alcohol and other drugs and driving and made it very generic. I guess that's the best word I can give to you. There's only like 5 or 6 paragraphs on information, and it used to be like maybe 5 pages long in the old manual. So my PowerPoint is based upon the material that we were using before. So we're going to get a little bit deeper and then what you have before you in your manual. The chapter, and I don't have it listed up here, but I think it was like chapter 18 that you were supposed to read on social interaction and distraction. Let me see. Chapter 18, handling social pressures, is what you were supposed to read. So that's what tonight's class is going to be based upon, is the state manual and some of the information that you had in your textbook. Let me show you something. If I had a big whiteboard and had you in class, this is what I'd be holding up right now. Let's see if I can move this over a little bit. So in your notes, I want you to draw 2 circles. In one circle, I want you to put driving. In the other circle, I want you to put drinking. Doesn't really work too well having the whiteboard like that, but it's the best I can do with what I got. You have signed up for driver's ed. You can get your license when you turn 16 here in the state of New Hampshire. You can start practice driving with your parents at 15 and a half. You can start driving with me at 15 and 9 months. So the whole process of you getting your driver's license, we are just at the end of your class, and a lot of you are right at the end of your driving with me. So you are extremely close to the point where you're going to be getting your driver's license. So, hooray, that's great. And when we think about when it's legal to drink alcohol, I think we all know that the legal age in New Hampshire and every other state in the country is age 21. So in those circles, I want you to put driving and then put 16. And then in the circle that says drinking, put 21. So between those two circles, we have a 5-year gap. So your driving is starting now, and your drinking starts 5 years from now, legally. But I think we all know what happens as you get older and you start getting freedom and you start hanging out with other people that could be a little bit older than you. Curiosity gets the best of everyone. And we start to think, I'm responsible. I don't think 21 is really the right age. I think the state has it wrong. I think they should let people drink at a younger age. What's the big deal? As long as you don't get behind the wheel of a car, I think they should let people consume alcohol. And you start justifying all these positions, all these attitudes. And you start finding yourself, maybe with peer pressure being involved, maybe I'll take a sip. Maybe I'll try taking a hit from someone's pipe. Maybe I'll take a pill. Maybe I'll inject something. So even though we're going to focus on alcohol, I don't want you to think drugs is going to be ignored. Because anytime that you introduce anything into your system, I want to show you what I've got right here. Okay, seltzer. This is what I'm drinking right now. But I want you to just imagine that if this was alcohol, that the minute someone takes a drink, it enters our body and it starts to affect us. Anytime that you put yourself in a situation where your mind and your body is affected by any type of drug, it's going to make you less of a driver. It doesn't make you a better driver. So don't let anybody start a discussion and trying to get you to lean towards the belief that doing this is going to make you a better driver. It just doesn't. There's only one drug that I can think of that we could debate whether it will make you a better driver. And the debate is only short-lived because I believe it will only make you a better driver for a short period of time, like a half hour to 45 minutes. And then it's going to probably start fading and it's not going to help you, and that's caffeine. Okay, caffeine is the most used drug in the world. Okay, most people love coffee. Most people love their energy drinks. Most people like chocolate. All these things have caffeine in it, and caffeine can make us stay awake. So that's where we can maybe agree that for a moment, for a while, caffeine might not be a bad thing, but caffeine doesn't last for, hours on top of hours. It changes. Let me get right into our discussion. And by the way, if I had you in class, I'm going to take a look. See, we've got 7 people watching right now, so we're missing one person. But if I had you in class, and I always tell people, and I don't want you to make any comments on this, okay? So please don't comment. I usually go around the room, and since I've been driving with all of you, I finally have driven with everybody, and I start to talk to you and get an idea of, what you like, and do you play sports? Do you have a part-time job? And do you have older brothers and sisters? And we kind of talk about different things other than just driving. I think it's good to kind of get to know people and, what their life is like. I make an assumption. I make some type of a guess whether you have tried alcohol. And all the years that I've been teaching driver's ed, and I've gone around the room, and I just ask people flat out, have you ever tried alcohol? And now I'm not talking about being drunk. Please don't misunderstand this. I'm talking about someone handed you a glass of wine, a beer, a mixed drink, and have you tried alcohol? And over the years, I have found I can usually guess with an 80% accuracy of how many teenagers have tried alcohol. Doesn't mean you're good, doesn't mean you're bad. It just means that I just believe you probably have. Okay? Now, the question that I have to start thinking about is that how many of those that just try to sip went on to maybe have a drink? That's when we're going to have a problem. That's when you're going to have a problem when you get behind the wheel of a car. It could have been a parent that gave you a drink. It could have been with your friends on a late Friday night after a basketball game. Um, it could have been a relative. It could have been anything. You just saw it on the table and no one was around, and you just, I wonder what this tastes like. What is my mother drinking? And you just grab it and you try it. Okay, there is a curiosity about things, and in other countries, drinking at a younger age is very common. So there's nothing. Oh, it looks like there might be an echo. I always do this when I switch over into my PowerPoint. But the problem, what happens is that once people try alcohol and they tend to like it, it usually progresses on to more than just a sip. It's a half a drink, then it's 3 drinks, then it's 5. And then before you know it, you're starting to feel the effects of alcohol. And that's when things can really go bad. Now, let me show you this.
Have a shot.
Here, drink some of this.
Have a shot.
First time you do it, you put yourself at risk because it takes a toll.
I drink to experiment and also to relieve stress.
There's always a reason to do it. I'm stressed, I don't like my parents.
Everyone that goes to public school does what you see, what you do. You just want to fit in and you just want to try that out. Why is everybody else doing it? There must be something great about it.
I was 14 years old when I tried weed with my friends.
She had done it before I did, and she showed me and she said it was okay to do it, and she liked it, and I tried it.
It was just a new feeling that I needed to explore further.
I started thinking if I only drank on the weekends, I wouldn't get addicted to drinking.
But I don't think I'll get addicted or to any type of drug.
In the beginning, I felt like I was controlling it, but after that, it got out of control. Like as I said before, I was high for 6 months.
It was every day. I'd be back there in the alley smoking weed with everybody else.
I drank so much that I started throwing up my stomach lining.
My health deteriorated. I've lost homes. I've never been able to hold a job. I've lived on the streets.
I ended up losing my scholarship in college.
Everything I wanted to be just went down the drain.
I could justify using in order to enjoy myself and other things.
I just felt like I was dying.
They opened the door for us and she was dead on the bed with the needle in her arm.
Gave him a shot of adrenaline to his heart, it flatlined him, killed him right there.
But when it's all over, only person that's paying the price is you.
If we went around the room and I asked each of you, because I usually tell people, because we're talking sensitive information here, that I do not go and talk to parents about, what happens and is talked about in driver's ed stays in driver's ed, unless it's something where it's physically going to hurt you. Like if I knew that you were planning on going and having a big party, I would report that to the school, because I'm held to a standard of if someone is going to hurt themselves or participate in illegal behavior, then I must report it to the resource officer at the school. So I don't want to know about what you have planned for the future, but when we talk about the past is the past. Everybody has a past. So it's interesting when we talk about and we start to share about your first time. You can usually remember who you were with. You can remember what you had to drink. And just out of curiosity, and like I said, don't put the comments on YouTube. If you want to make comments, please do it through text messages, because that's only between you and me. But I have found that most people will admit that the first time that they tried alcohol, they didn't like it. They did not like the taste of it. And usually high school kids will admit that they usually mixed it with something they did like a rum and coke or vodka and orange juice, wine cooler, hard cider, to kind of take away a little bit of that, strong, bitter taste of alcohol. And if you've ever had straight alcohol, that stuff burns. I mean, that just burns your inside. And most people go, I can't stand it. So this is what I want you to do. And you can do this on your phone, and you could do this also as comments, because this goes across the board. I want everybody to write down 3 reasons why you think people drink. So this doesn't have to be you, but give me 3 reasons. Why do you think people drink? What's the big deal? What's the allure? What's making them think about going out Friday night, Saturday night, and just tying one on? What's making them do that? So give me 3 reasons why. And then I want you to give me 3 reasons why people don't. Because this is what we're focusing on tonight, is the effects and the behavior around alcohol. Because I think if we had a basic understanding of why we do these things and how it's going to affect us when we get behind the wheel of the car, we're going to be more apt maybe not to do it, or to put things in place where we don't find ourselves where we're so bad affected by alcohol and drugs that we're going to hurt other people out on the roadways. And that's one thing we never, ever want to do. So I want you to give me 3 reasons why, 3 reasons why not. Text it to me right now, or put it on the comments, because it'd be interesting. So we can do that. So I'm going to play this song, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about it. And if you see comments from other people, if you do share on YouTube, things can be repeated. I'm not looking for original ideas. I'm just looking at seeing what you think, why people drink and why people don't drink. Fit in, have fun. They like the feeling. I like that. Stress, I like that. Peer pressure, there's a fun thing to it. Let's have a couple other people share something. See what people are saying. Peer pressure, fun, distraction, numbing the senses. I like that. Addiction, good. We're going to talk about that. Good. People are sharing. I like that. Thank you. Okay, think it's cool. They see other people doing it. Absolutely. The other thing that I want you to realize is that peer pressure goes both ways. Peer pressure can be positive, where you get around a lot of good people, and they're going to say, hey, John, don't do that. If you drink tonight and the coach finds out, you're going to get kicked off the team. You may have people trying to get you away from doing harmful behavior. So there's positive peer pressure, then there's negative peer pressure. This is why your parents tell you, okay, be careful who you keep company with, because it's going to make a big deal when it comes to making life choices. Before we get into this, let me click out of the music here. I got so many buttons going. All right, let me get into, I want to show you this. I also want you to write this down in your notes. So I'm going to put this in front of the screen. There are only 4 types of people in the world when it comes to alcohol and drugs. Okay, everybody that you know, okay, could be your 11-year-old brother to your 88-year-old grandfather. Everybody's going to fall into one of these categories. Okay, so I want you to write this down, right? So I want you to write down, whoa. Okay, write down non-user, social, problem, alcoholic. I should probably make a PDF graph for this so I don't have to hold up this board. So non-user, social, problem, alcoholic. Okay, let me go through this real quick. Non-user, I think we all know who that is. That's a person that's never had alcohol, never will. I will tell you right now, I have a mom and dad that are still alive. They are non-users. I have never, ever seen my parents pick up a glass of alcohol and drink anything. Not even a toast at a wedding. Never put it to their lips. And as far as I know, they never have growing up. My father did admit to me when I was much younger that he did try cigarettes at one time, he said. But other than that, my parents are non-users. Okay. The other category that I told you just beyond non-users, and one more thing about non-users, did you know that the human body only needs two things? When you're born, you need your mother's milk and you need water. Other than that, think about these third world countries. You could go a lifetime and only have water and live well, live fine. But we introduce cow's milk, goat's milk in other countries. We have now formula for babies that don't want to be on mother's milk. But basically, we don't need orange juice. We don't need, cranberry juice. We do not need Pepsi. We don't need Mountain Dew, energy drinks. Those are things that we've grown accustomed to, and we like the taste, the flavor, and what it does, the sugar part of it. But we do not need alcohol, okay? We do not need alcohol. Now, it's different when you become an alcoholic, that you do need alcohol. You become addicted to it. But you could basically go your entire life and never have alcohol. Okay, the next category, social. Now, think about this. A social drinker will probably have maybe 1-2 drinks a night, every couple nights, goes out to eat, maybe has a drink with a meal. They may drink at a wedding, New Year's Eve, but they're always in control. It never interferes what they're going to be doing after the event. They never wake up the next morning with a hangover. They don't get into arguments. They don't lose their jobs. It adds to their experience. It adds to their experience. And really, and no one put this down. Why do people drink? They like the taste. It's a beverage. It goes with a meal. And in a lot of countries, wine is served with a meal. And it's kind of ironic, and I did get a chance to go to Italy, is that they found that, did you know that the house wine in some restaurants is cheaper than bottled water? So alcohol is cheaper than water. It's kind of odd. Who would think that would happen? But that's social drinking. A social drinker probably never gets a drinking and driving conviction. But a problem drinker, that's the next category. I want you to see this progression. You go from a non-user, you have a sip, you have 2 drinks, then it's 3, then all of a sudden you're going out of the social category, and now you're in the problem. Do you think a problem drinker misses work the next day because of a hangover? Do you think a problem drinker has a problem maybe standing up after drinking too much? Do you think a problem drinker ever gets into fights? Do you think a problem drinker ever has a DWI? The answer is yes. So we see that progression. And then you get to alcoholic. And I always tell people the only difference between a problem drinker and an alcoholic is time. That is what, on that continuum chart that I showed you, you are going towards being an alcoholic. Now, some people start out with a sip, they have 2 drinks, and they always stay in that social category. But let me tell you, because we're getting right close to that age, 18 to 20, write that down in your notes, 18 to 20. What happens between the ages of 18 and 20? You leave your home and you go off to college. Or you move out of the house and you get your first apartment. No parental supervision. But hey, wait a minute. The drinking age is 21. No one's going to drink between 18 and 20 in this country, right? Even if they go off to college, there's no alcohol at a college campus. It's dry. There's no alcohol to be found. We find between the ages of 18 and 20 is where people go from that social drinking to the problem drinking. They just get out of control. And I would almost bet that just about every single one of you knows someone personally. Have heard stories of people that you went to high school with that graduated maybe a year or two ago, and now they're in college, and you've heard stories about them at college parties or home from college, and they're drinking and they're having issues after drinking. It happens. That 18 to 20 is where we're having a problem, and this is why I've got to focus on this tonight and let you know, even though I'm gearing you to be a safe driver and getting you out on the road to be responsible, I'm not going to see you when you're 18 to 20. This is my only shot to hopefully say something or to make an impact, to make you think twice about what you do when you get behind the wheel of a car. You're going to go off to school and you're going to push the limits. Some of you are going to go back to being a social drinker, and some of you are going to go the other way and you're going to become alcoholic. I'm going to tell you a quick personal story, and I do this with some classes, not all, but with some, and this is a small class, to let you know that everybody's human, nobody's perfect, they make mistakes. So drinking under the age of 21, we know, is illegal. And back when I was in high school, they had just changed the age. Your parents are probably a little bit younger than I am. But if you asked your grandparents, which would probably be even a little bit older than me, drinking used to be the age was 18. So it was very common when you're in high school, some of your friends that were seniors were legal to buy alcohol. And it just changed. I mean, within a year or two when I was in high school. But my best friend in high school had an older brother, and he was able to get alcohol. And I told you my parents have never drank alcohol. My first experience with alcohol was with my best friend as a sophomore in high school at the age that you are right now. And I believe it was probably a month or two after I got my license. Okay, and I can still remember where we were, and they handed me a beer. And I took my first sip of my first drink of alcohol and did not like it. Did not like it. And I'll be honest with you, I actually got halfway through and I tipped it over because I didn't want to drink any more of it. But I wanted them to think, oh, geez, that guy's so clumsy. You know, we'll give him another one. I go, oh, no. You guys seem to like it. You have it. But I didn't want to finish it. But I didn't want to look like I couldn't handle it and I didn't like it. But to give you some idea, that's my first experience with alcohol as a sophomore. And I was with my best friend, his first experience. I'm a driver's ed teacher, teaching people to be safe drivers, to not get behind the wheel of the car if you're under the influence of alcohol or drugs. And I don't think I told you this yet, but back in the late 90s into just in the year 2000, 2001, I was working for the state full-time in their DWI department dealing with the educational component to drinking and driving. So for 5 years, I was heavy into educational component for getting people rehabbed for DWIs. Well, anyways, that's my gig now. You know, don't drink and drive. The question is now is where's my friend? Our lives, as you get older, your lives will take you different directions. Some of your close friends now, you probably won't even speak to, 5, 10 years from now. Then there are other friends that you have, they'll be friends for a lifetime. But to let you know how your lives can just kind of split off and go in different directions. Soon after that, I found out that I really didn't like alcohol that much, but my best friend found out that he really did like it. And he started to drink a lot more. And I will tell you, by the time that we graduated, he barely graduated, he was an alcoholic. Even in high school, he was probably an alcoholic. Dropped out of all high school sports. He was a good athlete. He was a good student. But having a good time was his big thing. So that was high school. 20s, kept on drinking. Things got worse. So his life right now, he's actually dead. He passed away in his 30s from drinking too much alcohol. And I believe what I've been told is that he passed out in his bathroom, fell into the bathtub, and he drowned in his own vomit. All right. So that's where his life took him. Okay. He couldn't kick it. He became an alcoholic. So even though we're talking about driving and we're talking about, safe techniques and don't drink and drive, and we're going to look at some laws and stuff like that, you've got to understand is that you may think you've got control of it, and some people do, and they have no issues staying within their limits. But then there's going to be others that totally push the limit, totally go beyond what they should, and they run into some serious, serious problems. So let me kind of go through some of this stuff. And if you had Q's class, a lot of this stuff is going to be the same. So make sure that you understand, and I want you to write down that alcohol is a depressant type of drug. It slows down and sedates the brain, and you lose your controls of your body. And we're going to take a look at what it actually does to the body a little bit later. Alcohol has no calories. It has calories, but it has no nutrients. So there's no vitamins, proteins, anything that's necessary for growth and maintenance of the body. So it really does you more harm than good if you drink a lot of it. And a lot of people says, well, I think I've heard that if you drink wine, it's good for your heart. Yeah, red wine in moderation. If you've always been drinking wine, they tell you to continue on. It's probably beneficial. But I've never heard of a doctor says, have told people that are non-drinkers, you know what? To make your heart healthy, I think you should pick up drinking wine. So go to the store tonight, pick up a couple bottles, and we'll see if we can really work on that heart thing. Okay? That's not how it works. And there's other ways to get your heart in shape if you have heart issues, not drinking wine. So real quick, as I said, the minute you take a sip of alcohol, it enters your mouth, and it gets absorbed through the lining of the mouth and the tongue. So when you take a sip, that odor of alcohol will emanate in the air. So when you get too close to somebody, I'm going to get out of here for a second. So if you were to get relatively close to somebody and start speaking, you can't smell it. But them being 2 feet away, they can. And I just want to see if anybody is willing to put in the text messages here on YouTube or on your phone. How many of you have been around somebody and you could smell alcohol in their breath? I think probably all of you will probably say, yeah, I've been around, an uncle, a grandfather, or somebody. And actually perspiration too. I can remember going to Fenway Park to some games, and people just drinking beer after beer. And by the 7th inning, on a hot day, they're just perspiring. And you can smell it right through their perspiration. So it's not as easy to hide. Same thing with smoke. I always thought it was interesting. The international students that I had from China, especially males, would come to drive, and they reeked of cigarette smoke. And I would say, did you have a good cigarette before coming to drive? And they would look at me like, how'd you know that I smoke? And I go, I can smell the smoke on you. And they go, you can smell the smoke on me? I go, yeah, I can. When you're doing something, you don't know what other people are picking up. And alcohol is one of those things. Now, the minute you start drinking and it goes to your stomach, a little bit goes into your bloodstream, but most of it has to go to the small intestine. Now, I want you to write down the pyloric valve. Now, the pyloric valve is something between the stomach and the small intestine. So as you start drinking, alcohol is going to get mixed up with food, and little by little, food and alcohol go into your small intestines, and that's what gets into your bloodstream. But when you drink on an empty stomach, that valve opens up, and then all the alcohol floods the small intestine, and that's when things really get bad if you drink a lot of alcohol real quick. And that's why you get intoxicated. This is why they say sip your drinks and go over a long period of time and eat food, and the absorption rate will be a little bit lower, a little bit slower, and you'll be more in control of your emotions and your body functions. But if you drink it really quick, Watch out. And by the way, you never will hear someone going to the hospital and having their small intestines pumped. You're going to hear of people going to the hospital and getting their stomach pumped. You can't pump somebody's small intestine. So once it goes through that valve, it's no coming back. And did you know, have you ever heard of someone drinking and getting sick? They throw up. You know why the body throws up the alcohol? Because it's poison. Your body doesn't want it. The minute your body knows it's had too much to drink, it's saying, hey, stupid, stop drinking. And you're so stupid, you keep drinking, so your body says, well, guess what? I'm going to make you throw it up. And you get sick. And that's for your benefit, so it doesn't get absorbed into your small intestine and into your bloodstream. You have that mechanism to help save you. But sometimes that malfunctions, and you continue to absorb the alcohol. Then it goes to the bloodstream, goes to all parts of the body, brain, heart, liver. Write down in your notes, your liver, and this is going to be a test question, okay? So I want you to understand this because it's very vital that you understand that your liver is your filter system for alcohol. Alcohol, as I just said, is a poison. Your body does not need it, does not want it, so it has to filter it out. It can only filter out or oxidize, that's what the word oxidation means, about 0.015%. Now, that's a number. We're not going to get into chemistry. So all I want you to write down is 1 drink, 1 hour, okay? 1 drink, 1 hour. If you can always remember this forever, that if I drink 3 drinks, I probably should wait about 3 hours before I drive. You're going to be okay. Now, I've known people, I don't want to admit to this, but I had a college roommate. He was a big guy. He probably weighed about 260. No lie. I have actually seen him drink a case of beer in one evening. 24 drinks, 24 beers in one night. That's a whole day if we go 1 drink an hour to get that out of your system. That's crazy. So when you start seeing people drink 5, 6, 7, guess what? They could actually go home, go to sleep, wake up the next morning, and still get a reading, a blood reading, breath reading. They still could be intoxicated. That's crazy. Now, I also want you to know that alcohol will affect your brain in about 20 to 40 minutes. Now, why is that important to know? Let me get out of here for a second. So, a parent, a dad, we'll say it's a dad. Dad gets off work. He's got some friends he meets, at a bar, has a couple drinks. They've been doing this for years. And all of a sudden, he's sitting at the bar and he's having a drink. And this is his 3rd one, in the last half hour because he was really thirsty. It was really hot. Maybe played a round of golf. Let's say he played a round of golf. And all of a sudden, he looks at his watch. Oh, no. My son's baseball game. Oh, I was supposed to go to that baseball game. Sorry, guys, I got to go. And he gets up from the bar, and he's already had 3 drinks. But it's only been a half hour. Guess what? That alcohol, those 3 drinks that he had real quick, still hasn't been filtering through his body long enough. He's going to start to feel the effects now that he's out behind the wheel of the car. And how many people, when they get behind the wheel of the car, start going, oh, no, I'm starting to feel a buzz from this alcohol. I better pull over to the side of the road and wait a bit. Nah, I just got a little ways to go. I'm almost to my son's baseball game. Well, guess what happens? He rolls through a stop sign. The blue lights come on. Oh, no, the police are pulling me over. So the police pulls the guy over. Sir, do you know why I pulled you over? Yeah, officer, I'm sorry. I didn't stop at that stop sign. I'm trying to get to my son's baseball game. It was probably a rolling stop. I'm sorry. You can check my record. I got a clean record, but, I'm sorry. So the officer takes his registration, his license. He goes back, and sure enough, clean record. No tickets at all. But the officer says to him, I kind of smell some alcohol. Have you been drinking lately? Oh, yeah. I just went to the bar with some friends. And like I said, I'm going to my kid's game. I just realized I'm a little bit late for it. But, yeah, I had just a 1 or 2. Officer says, let's step out of the car. Let's really find out. Okay, now you're in trouble. And that's what we're going to talk more about tomorrow. Yeah, you roll through a stop sign. You only had 3 drinks, but it's been only a half hour. It's going to give a pretty good reading. You'd be surprised what that reading's going to be. That's how DWIs happen. You don't have to be a falling down drunk to get a drinking and driving conviction. The state says you just can't be out on the road at a certain level. If you're at that level, rolling a stop sign is going to get you a DWI. So don't confuse drinking and being a drunk and drinking 3, 4, 5 drinks in a relatively short period of time and still being able to get behind the wheel and not having any issues. It really doesn't work that way. But we'll talk more about that tomorrow. These are all the things that the physical effects of alcohol. What I really want to show you here is that the more that you drink, the frequency and the amount, you'd be surprised over months and years how it takes a toll on a body. It really does. And you've probably seen pictures in health class, especially when it comes to drugs, especially when people are on methamphetamines and things like that, is they, within 6 months, man, they just look like they are just wasted. They look 2, 3, 4 years older than they actually are. It's brutal. So just don't underestimate, you're young, your body bounces back, but as you get older, it doesn't. And it will have some adverse effects. And by the way, on the flip side, you being so young, you're still developing a lot of these systems. So you could be stunting or harming some of these systems as you continue to drink and drug. So let me show you the truth about drinking. I think this is the best one.
Have a shot.
Here, drink some of this.
Have a shot.
The first time you do it, you put yourself at risk because it takes a toll.
Have a shot.
Vodka,
Tequila,
scotch,
beer, wine,
rum,
gin, whiskey.
Sorry, I had a hard time finding the right video.
Alcohol probably took
This
20
is the one
years
I
of my
wanted.
life, and you can't get that back.
Alcohol is a drug, which most people don't think it is, but it actually is. It's classed as a depressant, meaning it slows down vital functions in the body.
Alcohol is made through the fermentation of fruits and grains.
The process of fermentation is basically letting fruit sit and rot until it can produce a mind-altering effect when you drink it.
There's different types of things you can drink that have different amounts of alcohol in them. Like a beer, if you just drink beer, that has 2 to 6% alcohol. Wine is about 8 to 20% alcohol. And then you got your hard liquors, which are like vodka or whiskey, which are about 40 to 50% alcohol.
When someone drinks 2 or more drinks, it acts as a stimulant. When they drink more than that, it acts as a depressant.
If you binge drink, what you're doing is you're just drinking repeatedly over and over large amounts and large quantities of alcohol. If you put that much alcohol in your system at one time, you can get alcohol poisoning, which could lead you to go into a coma or even kill you.
12 years old, I was in the 7th grade.
When I was in 8th grade, I think I was 13 years old.
It became very regular at 14 years of age.
15 years old when I first started drinking.
17 years old, starting going out parties, doing things like that.
At first, drinking was a sociable thing, I drank with my friends.
Thought I was really cool going out with all the older guys, and I'd try to show off in front of them and drink myself stupid. I just go out and party all night.
By the time I was probably 15 is where I started drinking at school. Putting it in a water bottle, I would take vodka or gin, something clear that looked like water, and I would just drink in class and pop mints in my mouth.
We'd go in, break into his parents' liquor cabinet, fill up our super big gulps full of ice and Everclear, and then stop by 7-Eleven and fill the rest of it up with Coke, and then make it to first period.
I was drinking not just at parties and stuff, but after classes and after work and even at work.
I waited tables, so
It was very easy access to alcohol.
It was just hard to say no. It was so readily available, and it was constantly there.
My drug problem wasn't something that happened immediately. It happened so slowly that I missed the fact that I was addicted to it.
Became routine. A way of life.
The only type of people I would hang out with were people who were using drugs or drinking alcohol. And it got to the point where that's all I cared about.
It became far more than just a partying thing. It was a necessity.
Without having alcohol in me, I could not function.
I kind of became a loner because all I ever wanted to do was just drink and drink and drink.
It felt like it was my only friend. Felt like that it was always there for me somewhere. You know, when things were going bad, I could always have a few drinks. Well, for me, it was never a few drinks. It was always a lot of drinks.
I was consuming about 30 beers a day, a whole case of beer, and 3/4 of a gallon of light rum. I would essentially have that and black out every night.
I could do nothing but drink 24/7, drink, pass out, drink, pass out.
I literally started drinking so much that I would shake if I didn't have a drink.
When I would not drink, I'd get extremely sick. Deathly sick.
Just really achy all over, and you have headaches, and you're so dehydrated that you have no energy.
Alcohol had been, in and out my body so much that it had tore away some of the lining of my esophagus, and blood was creeping in.
I was a physical disaster. I was that far in my addiction of physical withdrawal that when I shut that alcohol intake off, my body tried to shut down.
The actual withdrawal from alcohol can kill you, for one thing, if it's too intense. Your body has no vitamins, or is dehydrated, and you can have DTs, you can seizure to death. It's terrible.
I got a phone call, that my father was in the hospital and that he was really, really sick, and that he wasn't going to make it. So the next day I got on a plane to go home, and my only way to confront this was to drink alcohol. So I showed up at the airport pretty drunk, and my family, saw me there, and, they didn't know what to say. The worst thing about it is that my father was kept conscious so that he could see me before he passed away. But instead of disgracing his memory, they'd put him on life support.
I had gotten kicked out of this bar for fighting. I was beyond drunk, and I was attacked and raped. And I went home, and I stayed in my apartment for a week. My mom would come knocking on the door. I'd pretend I wasn't home. I felt like it was my fault. I was the one that was at that bar. I was the one that was getting drunk.
I went home, and I had a roommate. And for some reason, we got into an argument, which resulted in a fight, and the cops got called. I blacked out for part of it, so I couldn't figure out why I was waking up in jail.
I drank some beer there at the bar inside the airport. I just ordered another beer and put my backpack on and started walking through the terminal smoking a cigarette. I didn't care what I was supposed to be doing, and I ended up getting a fight with the police there at the airport, and I woke up in jail. I had staples in my head.
In the military, I woke up and I actually had to crawl on my hands and knees off the flight deck of the carrier because I couldn't walk, and then I got discharged from that and lost a girlfriend and a kid and my whole life.
I drank to blackout one night. Well, sometime about an hour later, I got back up. I went to my bedroom. My wife wasn't there. I went to the girls' bedroom, and they were all in the bed together, basically hiding from me through a blackout. And I decided right then that I couldn't stay there anymore. I was afraid I was going to hurt someone at a blackout.
I haven't had a drink in 3 years, yet I'm reminded daily of my alcohol abuse because of the long-term effects. I have horrible short-term memory, and it makes everyday life very difficult for me. Just remembering names, remembering how to do things.
As a result of alcohol, I had high blood pressure, and I still have it.
Destroys your internal organs, and it can destroy your brain functions, your handwriting, small motor skills. It's definitely a poison.
I have liver pains, bone and muscle aches that just used to not be there, and it's not from age. I'm not that old. I should be in my prime right now, and I've probably aged myself 20 years through alcohol abuse.
Alcohol is slow to kill, but it's the most hideous form of death. If I had known how sneaky and dangerous and insidious alcohol is, if somebody had kind of told me And if I had known that it's not this symbol for a good time, I think that would have made a difference.
It's not like some of the other drugs that instantly after your first time you're hooked and you're addicted to it. A lot of times, you know, most of my friends didn't even like the taste of beer when they first started drinking.
It started out as something that was fun, something we did on weekends. How it progressed to an everyday, all-day thing is beyond me. I have no answer to that. I do not understand how that happened, but it did.
It's nothing but misery. The last 12, 13 years of my life, I've spent probably over $500,000, and over 4 or 5 years of that has been institutionalized, whether it be in a alcohol treatment rehab facility or, you know, incarcerated.
Alcohol is just as bad, if not worse, than heroin or barbiturates or anything else. I don't know, if 60% of people go out to drink and get drunk, chances are that they're going to lead to something else and they're going to end up on a downward spiral.
I may not be very old, but I have definitely seen some hellish things from alcohol. To be honest, I didn't think someone could get to the point that I was at my age. I thought that took years and years, but no, downward spiral.
It might seem fun at the beginning, but after you get stuck in that lifestyle for years, you realize how not fun it is. It's terrifying.
Sorry for the little mishap to get that video going. I just didn't label them correct, so I had to kind of find it where I had them stashed. Kind of an uplifting story, huh? Boy, aren't they just having the time of their lives. Man, I can't imagine some of the lives that these people have had to go through. It started out as fun, and I think the one story, I forgot the individual that said it, I don't know how I got here. And the other person that said, I wish that someone would have told me about this. It's like, what, were you under a rock? Almost every junior high, every high school has curriculum where they're talking about the effects of alcohol and drugs. And if you ever took a reputable driver's ed program, they should be telling you about the negative aspects of drinking and driving. See, too many times people focus on the parties, the good times. But you've got to understand there's a flip side. When you start going from that social part of drinking to the problem part, there's some bad stuff going down. Okay, life is not fun anymore. It's a struggle. It's a struggle. So I don't want you to write down everything that I have in these PowerPoints, but I want you to understand. I want you to write down BAC. BAC stands for blood alcohol concentration. Some states say blood alcohol content. Some states you may see BAL, blood alcohol level. Every state comes up with their own terminology, but it's basically units of alcohol per units of blood. Okay, so it's kind of like, you know, a few drops of alcohol to like 100 parts of blood. So as the droplets of alcohol get mixed into your bloodstream, you're diluting your blood, and that's where you get your levels. And by the way, and we're going to see this when we go through this chart, the clinical signs and symptoms, is that alcohol is the liquid form of ether. Think about that. If you've ever been operated on or ever watched TV and someone's being operated on, why don't people in the middle of the operation just sit up and say, hey, that hurts. You know, stop doing that. Don't cut me anymore. Why are people able to stay in a state where they don't feel pain? Is because we give them ether with an anesthesiologist, and we put them in between life and death. When you're operated on, you really are truly lingering between life and death. The job of the anesthesiologist is to monitor your heart rate, your blood pressure, all your vital signs, to make sure that you don't wake up, because that would be bad for the doctor as he's cutting it into you. And if he gave you too much, then you die. Now, that's a doctor that's monitoring that. When you get alcoholic and you start drinking in high levels concentrations of alcohol. Who's monitoring you? Nobody. I want you to realize you can drink yourself to death. Even as a young person, your first experience with alcohol being, maybe this summer. But come Christmas time, if you go out with a whole bunch of friends after a hockey game and you drink, a couple pints of vodka, who knows what's going to happen to you? You can drink yourself to death. So what I want you to write down is I want you to understand how the body is going to be affected by certain levels of alcohol, your BAC levels. So just write down the top line here. So what I want you to write down is a BAC of 0.01 to 0.05 is sobriety, which means that you're not going to be arrested. This is not at the legal limit. There is no apparent influence. Your behavior is going to look ordinary. And the only way we can tell you've been drinking is that if we were to give you a test or get close enough that we could smell alcohol. This is why people can go out to eat and have a couple drinks or go to a bar, have 2-3 drinks. Maybe if you're bigger, 250, 260, you could get up around, 4, 5, 6 drinks maybe within an hour or two and still drive home and be perfectly fine. And you're legal. Remember, it's not illegal to get behind the wheel of alcohol. It's illegal to get behind the wheel of the car at a 0.08. So notice this next chart. Euphoria, 0.03 to 0.12, right there smack in the middle is the 0.08. So you're buzzed, and another word for euphoria is being buzzed. If you ever tried alcohol before, a drink or two, you can tell that your body's starting to react to it. And that's that buzz, that euphoria. You become sociable, you talk, you have increased self-confidence where you may, feel like you could go up and talk to that girl or talk to that guy, go and get a job application. You're afraid to go into a building and talk to somebody, so you go out and you drink a little bit, and then you walk into the store to get that application. All these things what you wouldn't normally do when you were sober. This is when you're getting in trouble. Notice at 0.03, you're still legally okay to drive, but at a 0.08, you're not. 0.09, 0.10, 0.11, 0.12. You're in the middle here. You're fluctuating. And most people don't have a monitoring system in their car or on their. You can actually get them for your iPhone, by the way, which is kind of funny that you think that you need one. But it's very hard for you to tell. Now I want you to start writing down these, because this is part of your homework that you're going to have to do. 0.09 to 0.25 is excitement. So that's decreased inhibitions, loss of critical judgment, impaired memory, decreased sensory response, and muscular incoordination. If you've ever seen someone drink alcohol and they cannot walk normally, they're probably at this level. If their walk is a little bit off balance, and their speech is a little bit different, they're probably at this level. And this is how they've trained police officers. Once they get you out of the car to do the field sobriety test, they're watching what you do and how you respond to them. That's all part of their report. So you may think, this officer is so stupid. He has no idea what I've done for drinking. Oh, he probably does. He's just not letting on. So don't think you're getting away with it. So excitement. The next thing I want you to write down is 0.18 to 0.30 is confusion. This is the person that may not realize where he parked his car. Someone that's crying uncontrollably for no reason. You go up, why are you crying? Someone turned on the lights. Well, why are you crying? I didn't want the lights to be on. It doesn't seem to be a logical thing to be crying about, but yet they're bawling. Altered sense of perception, decreased pain. Their balance is staggered in a staggered gait. That's pretty bad. To drink at this level, you're doing some heavy drinking. Heavy drinking. Next one, 0.27 to 0.40 is stupor. Now, general inertia approaching paralysis. This is a person that is sitting on a couch and you tell them to stand up. We got to go. We got to go home. Okay? The party's almost over. We get you home, get you sobered up. You're going to sleep this off. You try to stand him up and he won't. You stand him up, he sits back down. You stand him up, he sits back down. He can't walk. Okay. If there's nothing else that you remember tonight, I want you to write this down. And I'm serious. I am dead serious. If you ever find somebody in this state, call 911. Be a bigger person. But Mr. Toll, they're going to get in trouble. I'm going to get in trouble. I shouldn't have been at this party. Do you want your friend to die? That's what it comes down to. People need someone to be the grown-up in the room. Okay? You have to realize that what started out as fun and games, there had to be somebody in the room that brought more alcohol than they thought was needed, and they're just going to consume it all. There's no responsible drinking at all. And there was a case at Penn State probably 2-3 years ago now, and I've got to dig it up because I've used it before. It may even come into tomorrow night's class. But anyways, a freshman at Penn State was pledging a fraternity. He was drinking. He was underage. And, of course, the upperclassman was giving him the alcohol. Well, he kind of drank too much, and he fell down the stairs. And people left him there. People walked over him all night long. They just thought, he's just a freshman drunk. He'll sleep this off. He'll have a hangover tomorrow morning. What a foolish freshman. He died. He died in the middle of the night. He had too much alcohol. Nobody called. His parents has sued Penn State and every single person that was in that fraternity for being negligible, for not calling for help. And I believe they just came down with a verdict. I'll try to dig it up. I'll try to find it. But this is part of your homework, okay? I want you to write this down. I want you tonight, at the end of this class, is to go online. I want you to find 2 articles dealing with drunk driving. Just out of curiosity, the article has to have a BAC level like we're talking about right now. I want you to understand this stuff that I'm going over right now, this is real life. There are people behind the wheel of a car driving at a 0.27, 0.40. They're hurting. They're killing our loved ones. Even if you're not going to be a drunk driver or find yourself in this situation, anytime you get behind the wheel of a car on a Friday, Saturday night going down the road, I hope you start thinking from my class, Mr. Toll said there's a lot of people out Friday, Saturday, Sunday night. That's the worst 3 nights of the week, between 8 and 2 in the morning. That's where you're going to find your drunk drivers. If you're out on the road, they say 1 to 2 out of 10 cars have had alcohol in their system, close to the legal limit. 1 to 2 out of 10. 10 to 20% of the drivers going by you have alcohol in their system, somewhat close to legal intoxication at a 0.08. You just never know when they're going to cross the line. It'd be a problem for you. Okay, let's go through the last couple. Next one is coma, 0.35 to 0.50. But the less than 15% that I've got listed here is basically only 15% of the drinking population can drink to this level and still live. Most of us would go to the next slide, which will be death. If you drink to this limit, you need medical help. That's why I said call 911. Let the pieces fall where they may. Yeah, you may get into trouble, but you're going to get through it. They're going to get through it. They're going to be alive. They're going to be alive. I can't imagine going through a life knowing that you could have helped somebody, but you chose not to. That's going to be something you struggle with. The next slide, like I said, was death. Okay? You can drink yourself to death. And it doesn't take long. You don't have to be in your 60s, 70s, falling down drunk. You could be a college kid, a high school kid that just gets caught up in drinking hard liquor and drinking more than you should super quick. It can happen. The other thing, I don't know if it's the next slide. Oh, here's one of the examples. This is what I'm looking for. Okay, I found this many, many years ago. So this was 10 years ago. South Dakota woman sets the blood alcohol record. She blew a 0.70. She should have been dead. She's part of that 15% that can drink. She's a full-fledged alcoholic. And I don't expect you to read this article real quick that I've got up here, but the bottom paragraph, let me just go through the last couple sentences. She's now being held without bail after the judge slammed her with charges of 2 counts of driving under the influence of alcohol. At the same time, she had early missed her court hearings. But basically, they let her out of jail, and within a week, she did the same thing. She stole a car, and she was driving again. So the other part of your homework, besides getting the 2 articles about drunk drivers and their BAC level. So remember, you got to do an article about drunk driving, and it has to have a BAC level in it. You could send me the link, or you can just print it out and take a picture of it. So 2 articles, BAC levels, and then what I want you to do is I want you to write down, what should we do to people that continue to drink and drive? What should be the penalty? So I want a couple paragraphs of what should we do to people that drink and drive. How are we going to solve this problem? We can't release people and have them go back out on the road and kill somebody. There are many articles that you'll find on the internet where people were released from jail for drinking and driving, waiting for their next court date, and in the process get behind the wheel of a car and kill somebody. So we've got to figure out what we can do. How about this article? Oh, thanks, Finnegan. He's got it there. 4 of the fraternity brothers were sentenced to an array of house arrest and jail for 6 to 9 months and then probation. Okay, it could have been worse. It could have been worse, but still, that doesn't help your college career, spending time in jail. I mean, you talk about remote learning. That's pretty remote, being in jail. How'd you like to be this guy? A drunken driver hits a telephone pole support wire that decapacitated his passenger. Then he drove 12 miles to his home, slept in his bloody clothes, leaving the headless body in his truck. How can you drink so much that your passenger sticks his head out the window to throw up, and you hit a support wire, and you take off his head, and you continue to drive home? How does that happen? Officers found Hutchinson asleep at his home. They later found Brahm's head near the pole. Hutchinson, 21, was charged with vehicular homicide, driving under the influence and failure to stop at the accident. He was jailed on $100,000 bond, and that was 16 years ago. Look at that. Crazy. I'm not going to show you this video because there's another one I want to show, but I want you to write this down. Once you know that you have an addiction to alcohol or drugs, really the only way to stop it, to change your behavior, is to get counseling, to get help. So write down your notes that if you find yourself, self-will, people will say, why don't alcoholics just stop drinking? Don't they know all the damage that they're doing? It's a little bit more complicated than that. You really need professional help. So write down ways to alleviate becoming addicted is to go to self-help groups like AA, NA, which stands for Alcohol Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, Al-Anons for teens with parents that have drinking problems, drug problems, a private counselor, alcohol and drug counselor. There's inpatient, outpatient facilities. I think, what's the actor that's married to Jennifer Garner? Ben Affleck, alcoholic, had to go to rehab. Okay, there's lots of Hollywood actors and athletes that have alcohol and drug problems. You need help. You need people in your corner. You just can't white knuckle it and think that you're just going to, say no to the person that's handing you the next drink. Because it may work one day and the next day it won't. So you need other strategies. So please realize that there are ways to get help. I just wanted to include that into my program. But I also wanted to show you, and I want to show you this about the brain. So this gets a little bit deep. So it's kind of what we were talking about and how it affects the body. But I thought they did a pretty good job.
It may be legal, but it is still a drug. Be safe, be sensible, know your limit. Alcohol is a drug too. Think before you drink. Your body belongs to you. The purpose of this presentation is to help you understand the impact that alcohol has on your brain and the damage it can do. Our goal is to provide you with information which will enable you to make informed choices in relation to safe alcohol consumption. Did you know? Healthy people metabolize alcohol at a fairly consistent rate. As a rule of thumb, a person will eliminate 1 standard drink or 10 mils of alcohol per hour. And remember, it's not how many drinks you have, but how much alcohol you consume. Several factors influence this rate, including gender, age, height, weight, general health, the presence of food in the stomach, the concentration of alcohol in the drink, and prescription or illicit drugs taken by the person. It's the blood alcohol concentration, or BAC, which is the key to why we are affected by alcohol. Basically, your blood alcohol concentration is the relationship between the total amount of alcohol in your system divided by total body water, because alcohol is dissolved and diluted in water. So that's also why drinking lots of water with any alcohol consumption is a really good thing. The BAC and the effects of alcohol go up when the body is taking in alcohol faster than it can metabolize it. For example, if you binge drink and consume a 750ml bottle of rum or 3 bottles of wine, that's around 26 standard drinks, between 6 p.m. and 2 a.m, your body will need until sometime around 6 p.m. the next day to process and get rid of the alcohol. And that's why driving or operating equipment the next day is not only illegal, but just crazy, particularly when you consider what this is doing to your brain. Let me explain. Alcohol enters the body and ends up in the stomach, at which point about 20% is absorbed immediately, and the other 80% is absorbed in the small intestine. The heart then pumps the absorbed alcohol to every part of the body, including the central nervous system, which consists of the brain and spinal cord, and it gets to the brain really fast. So that's why even after just 1 drink, you can feel lightheaded or relaxed. Alcohol acts primarily on the nerve cells within the brain and interferes with communication between nerve cells and all other cells, slowing everything down. And that's why when we drink even a little, we experience the effects of alcohol on our emotions, judgment, balance, memory, speech, and anger levels, just to name a few. Did you know that your brain is still developing until you're around 20 to 25? So we need to be really careful because alcohol can do some irreversible damage to various parts of our brains. For example, drinking affects the cerebral cortex, which controls our senses, and inhibitory centers, which is why when you drink, you become more talkative, more self-confident, and less socially inhibited. It also controls our thought processes, so alcohol affects our ability to make good judgment or think clearly. The brain's frontal lobes are important for planning, forming ideas, making decisions, and using self-control. So when alcohol affects the frontal lobes of the brain, you may find it hard to control emotions and urges, and you may act without thinking, and even sometimes become violent or act completely out of character. Does this sound familiar? The cerebellum is important for coordination, thinking, and being aware. So again, you may have trouble with these skills when alcohol affects the cerebellum. That's why people affected by alcohol sometimes can't walk properly or lose their balance and fall. The hippocampus is the part of the brain where memories are made. So when alcohol reaches the hippocampus, you may have trouble remembering something you just heard, or even worse, have a blackout and not be able to remember what you did last night. If alcohol damages the hippocampus, you may find it hard to learn or remember things in the future. The hypothalamus is a small part of the brain that does an amazing number of the body's housekeeping chores. After a person drinks alcohol, blood pressure, hunger, thirst, and the urge to urinate increases, while body temperature and heart rate decreases. And finally, the medulla controls the body's automatic actions, such as your heartbeat. It also keeps the body at the right temperature. Because alcohol chills the body, drinking a lot of alcohol outdoors in cold weather can cause a person's body temperature to fall below normal. This dangerous condition is called hypothermia. Your body belongs to you. Get the facts. Alcohol is unsafe for the developing brain. Alcohol can damage your brain forever. The long-term functioning and health of your brain depends on the choices you make today. Your responsible attitude toward alcohol can have a positive influence on your friends and family. Your body belongs to you. Take care of it. It's the only one you have.
So I thought they did a pretty decent job of explaining some of the things that we've talked about tonight. This is a story about, I was telling you about, you can be innocent, meaning you're just driving home. A drunk driver can ruin your life forever. So we do need to know why it's important not to get behind the wheel of a car if you're under the influence of alcohol and drugs. But don't let your guard down. As I said earlier, driving at night, or even driving during the day, because alcoholics drink all during the day, you've got to be looking for people's behaviors that indicate that they're not controlling a car. Now, this particular crash happened many, many years ago, and this was before airbags were mandatory in cars. So this crash, there wouldn't have been as much death or injuries as we're going to see. But I wanted to show you a person that was totally sober with a bunch of friends having a good time, and she was hit by a drunk driver, a high school kid. So make it kind of, the situation that you're in. The other thing before I get to this, someone from the last class, I just made a comment. I said, I wonder what her life is like now. And they did some research for me, and I appreciate that. But the girl that you're going to see in this story has passed away. It's bad enough that she's had to live through this crash, but she had cancer, and she died of cancer. But I cannot imagine what her life was like up to that point, because she never had a waking moment where she wasn't in pain. I don't think the person that hit her is a terrible person. He just did a terrible thing. I think he does have remorse. But you've got to remember, you can be as sorry as you possibly can be. It doesn't take away what you did. And I do believe he should have spent more time in jail. But laws change. So this was like probably 15 years ago. So right now, I'm sure he'd get more time. And I want you to include that in your discussion paper that I want you to send along as homework. What's the jail time for? What are they going to do? How long should they be in there? How do you know that they've been rehabbed? But I just don't think that people that take other people's lives should just go on with their life. I think there should be some restitution and, sometime in jail. Let me show you the story. You'll see what I mean. And by the way, there was someone from Oyster River that I had in driver's ed. He was in a similar situation where he was, I believe, 2 or 3 years old when a drunk driver hit him and his mom in Florida. I think ran a red light, and their car burst into fire. His mom died, and when I had him in driver's ed, part of his face, you could see where the burn was. Both his hands were really bad. And he was telling me about all the surgeries that he had to go through. But this is Jackie's story. Jackie will tell you basically. And her case is a lot worse than his.
Some roads take us home. Some roads take us places we've never been. Some roads and some choices take us places we would never want to go. One September night in 1999, a high school senior named Reggie Steffi took this 4-lane road to get home.
In high school, I was the all-American guy. Worked hard and had some hopes and dreams to keep going on the college level. But my senior year, after the 3rd football game of the season, I was out at a party one night.
I had a few beers. I was not falling down drunk and weaving all over the place. But it was more than enough to impair me.
It was enough to cause Reggie to cross head-on into an oncoming lane of traffic. His SUV struck a car with 5 people inside. 2 people in the car died instantly. 2 suffered broken bones, and another person was trapped inside when the car caught fire. Other than a few bruises, Reggie wasn't hurt, but a blood test showed he had been drinking. He was tried and convicted for causing the deaths of 2 young women while he was driving drunk.
I'm 23 years old now, and I've been in prison for 3.5 years. There were a lot of life lessons that you learn, and in prison you tend to learn them a little bit quicker, just valuing freedom. You don't have a telephone to call your mom or call your best friend. You don't have email to go back and forth and communicate instantly. When you don't have those things, you realize how important a lot of things are to your life and how much you take them for granted. And when they're gone, they're gone.
Jacqueline Sabarito lost a lot that September night, too. She had come to Texas from her native Venezuela to improve her English. She was a passenger in the car that Reggie hit and was trapped in the burning wreckage. Somehow, she survived. Jackie lost her ears, her face, her hands, and her independence. She's had more than 50 operations. There are many more to come.
Sometimes the hardest thing for me to do in my life is fight with the depression, fight when I go out, and sometimes people look at me like an alien or something like that.
The crash totally changed Jackie's life. She fights pain every day. People point at her and stare. Her plans for college and a career are on hold. And inside a Texas prison, Reggie Steffi faces a life he never expected.
I hear a lot from my friends and what they're doing and where they've been and what's happening to them at college, and part of me misses that, misses what they're doing. My best friend just got married a few weeks ago, and seeing the pictures and seeing him and his bride and seeing everything that's changing and everybody else moving forward, and here I'm just kind of spinning my wheels in the same place, doing the same things every day, and everybody else is moving forward. It's a hard thing to deal with sometimes. You see everybody and everything changing around you, and there's really nothing you can do to stop it or to move along with them.
My second life, I could say, is completely different, completely. Of the 24 hours of the day, probably, I can say 1 or 2 hours. I'm pretty sad about my appearance, because I can say in those 2 hours, things that I couldn't do it with my hands, or when I get so warm inside my body because I can't sweat, or when I sit on the mirror, I get so sad.
I can't change it. I can't make it go away. And it's not something that I want to forget about. It's not something that I will ever forget about. Some people would want to and some people would try, but it's something that I live with every day. If you think ahead to what you're going to be doing, you can make the right decision. But once you've been out there drinking and partying, it does impair your judgment, and you may think differently, and you may think you're all right when you're really not, like I did. Looking back on September 19th, 1999, there are a number of things that I could have done to prevent this. The easiest is to not drink. Had I planned ahead and had someone sober with me, I wouldn't be in this situation. I could have called a cab and forked over $30 for a cab ride home and not been in this situation. I could have called my mom or my uncle and woke them up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I wouldn't have been in this situation. 2 people would be alive, and Jacqueline would be about her life. And the easiest way to prevent that is decide who's driving tonight before you go to the party.
Reggie Steffi has been turned down for parole. He is scheduled to be released from prison in 2008 after spending 2,555 days behind bars. Jackie will spend the rest of her life recovering from injuries. She continues to speak out against the dangers of drinking and driving.
Okay, let's talk a couple of things before we wrap things up for tonight about the video. I don't know about you, but the first time I saw that, I knew that I had to include this into the driver's ed program, because a lot of times when we read things that are happening to people, it sounds bad, but when you see a picture, when you see a video and you see sound or hear sound, it kind of sticks with you. I think the emotion runs a little bit deeper. I was really moved by the pain and the anguish that she's living or had to live with. It's pretty sad. At the very end of the video, it told about her medical bills. And we're not going to get into that tomorrow, but we probably will do this on Thursday. It said that she had $5 million worth of medical bills. So my question to you, who's going to pay for that? You can see her condition. She was in a lot of pain. She couldn't hold down a job. Reggie, who caused the crash, he was spending 7 years in prison. So he's not going to help pay for it. So who's paying? Who's paying for that? Do you know what the answer is? You. Me. Everybody. This is why medical costs, when medical bills aren't paid, it gets spread across everybody. This is why when we talk on Thursday about insurance, you want to make sure that you have adequate insurance so your insurance company will pick up the bill. But I will tell you right now, there's not an insurance company, or at least most policies that they write out will not cover a $5 million medical bill. You'd be hard-pressed to find people that are carrying $1 million of liability. I do, but you'd be surprised that you're going to be on the hook. So she had to pay those medical bills. Now, whether she was on Social Security, whether it was her family, but a lot of those bills were being paid out of money that was coming to her. The other thing, 7 years in prison, do you think that was fair for what he did? So in your homework, I want you to really think about it and just don't say I will not accept, I like the laws the way that they are. I don't care what you write down, as long as you're thinking about rehabilitating people's behavior. So think about jail time, think about education, think about what to do as a victim panel. Research it, find out what other places are doing. but don't put you like what New Hampshire's doing and everything is fine. That's not an answer. That's a cop-out. So I want some thought. I'm not looking at a typed, 2-page report with footnotes and citing references. I'm looking at a reactionary paper, a couple paragraphs with some thought in it about what the penalty is. Because I want you to realize is that today's laws will be changed tomorrow. Most laws change. So how do we change laws is that we have to show that we are not happy with the status quo. And as a people, we want stricter laws. It could actually go the opposite way, like lenient laws. Laws are taken off the books, or the penalties are made less after we find out that they're not working. So I don't care which side you go, one side or the other, but do not put down that you like what New Hampshire's doing. The other thing that I'd like you to do, remember, is the 2 articles. So we're going to finish up tomorrow dealing with penalties. We're going to talk about what New Hampshire does. I'll take a look at what you send me. We'll probably discuss that a little bit. We'll take a look at drugs a little bit more. We weren't able to get into that tonight. I'm not going to get too heavy into drugs because I think as long as you know that your body is affected by alcohol or drugs, that you've got to find other ways to get home. It shouldn't be you driving behind the wheel of a car. And by the way, let's just talk about this for just a few minutes, is that in this day and age, there's a 4-letter word that should prevent you from ever finding yourself where you could get a DWI, and that's Uber or Lyft. Those 2 4-letter words should get you out of trouble. As long as you get cash or a credit card, whatever they take, because I haven't been in one recently. Actually, my son-in-law is the one that paid for the Uber that we had, but I've never used them. But it should not be that difficult to find a ride to get home. Leave the car where it is. Have a friend that's sober take you, a designated driver, but you should not get behind the wheel of a car under the influence of any alcohol or any drug at all, especially under the age of 21. So please don't find yourself in that situation. So that is your homework. Read Chapter 18. After tomorrow's class, you'll do some questions on alcohol and drugs from Chapter 18 and from these PowerPoints that I've been giving you. There'll be some questions. But tonight's homework, 2 articles with a BAC level and change the laws for what should we do to our drunk drivers. So that's it. We'll see a lot of you tomorrow. Some of you are driving. Have a good night and see you tomorrow. Hopefully I'll get my light fixed.